Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I have a very horrifying upload to share with you all. A set of events that should have never happened. Before we get into it, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon and PayPal are in the description below. The merch is displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman, Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, the links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It doesn't cost you a cent. Click the like button. It takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the exciting and informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon. And finally, last but definitely not least, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all these things, they really do help this channel to continue to grow and go. And folks, they do matter. Now, everyone, I have taken far too much of your time. Let's get on with today's upload, shall we? All right, guys, today's upload is centered around an event, an encounter, an experience that should have never happened. It's absolutely horrifying to imagine that something like this would occur in the United States. When you hear what I'm going to share with you, you'd almost think it was coming out of the Soviet Union. A subscriber of mine has a cousin. This subscriber is notorious for being in the comment section. They want to remain anonymous right now, but if they do hear this, chances are they will, because they do listen to every upload. It's up to them if they want to share that it is their cousin or not. So this subscriber has been talking about Bigfoot, Dogman, UFO, everything under the sun that we as a community on this channel talk about and believe. Her cousin, first cousin, had a chilling experience. The subscriber reached out to me first, and they said that my cousin really needs to speak with you. I'm being very careful not to gender this subscriber. I said, email, phone call, how do they want to communicate? What do they, was it an encounter? What happened? And she said, yes, definitely an encounter, and probably email first. She already had my email, obvious. I said, have him email me. So the cousin gets in touch and just really glazes over what happened. And actually was, I don't care if you don't believe me, this happened. I need someone to talk to about this. I never thought anything like this was possible. So they were in the Kootenai National Forest, which is just outside or in the region of Libby, Montana, right close to the panhandle of Idaho. They and a group of people had rented a couple of cabins. There were some people in this group that didn't know everyone. It was more or less, friend of a friend of a friend, girlfriend, They all kind of got to meet each other during this whole experience. So they had rented a few cabins up there. They were having a really good time, just camping, hiking, fishing, just really enjoying the outdoors, drinking, of course. But during the experience, they were not drinking at all. None of them partake in any kind of other mind-altering substances other than drinking. And if the subscriber's cousin, he's 100% sure that no one did, that no one was doing anything. He wanted to make sure that was very clear, and that they had just been, relaxing, and the idea to go horseback riding came up. This was not planned. They had gone hiking in a region near or in Kootenai National Forest called Bull Lake. There apparently is a equestrian rental where you can, pay for riding through the trails and stuff like that. Now, the group consisted of 11 people. Now, mind you, that probably half knew each other very well. The other half were, best friend, boyfriend, girlfriend, too. And so they were pretty familiar with each other, but not really. Just, a few were just getting to meet each other, So they end up going horseback riding. And it's a beautiful day. It's about 75 degrees the entire day. It's a calm, crisp day. They had gone in this Bull Lake region. There's some trails out there, and they were going pretty deep. They had been horseback riding for 2 hours. It was about a 4-hour trip. They paid a pretty decent sum. And that's the craziest part about this whole thing is there were 2 equestrian riders with them as well. So there's 13 total. They come to a region where they get off their horses, they're watering their horses, they're relaxing for a minute. They're taking photos, taking videos with their phones, and really just having the time of their lives. They then are about to head out, and they hear some kind of roar or howl. The guides, the equestrian guides, are kind of put off, and everybody notices that these guys are put off. These are professional. They teach people on a daily basis how to ride a horse. They go in this location on a daily basis, and these 11 are like, hey, what is going on? What was that noise? And it was close. And why are these guys acting so strange? One of the guides had a rifle, a lever action rifle. That's what the cousin said. He's not familiar with firearms. He isn't a woodsy guy. This is a whole new kind of outside of his ball game. He works in the banking industry. He said, I've never gone camping. I've never, I wasn't in Boy Scouts. I was, kind of a city person. I grew up, even though I grew up in Montana, I was what most Montanians would call a city boy. He sees the guide get his rifle out of the sheath or scabbard on the horse, and now everybody's kind of freaked out. Like, what's going on? Is this a bear? They were warned, first and foremost, there are wolves, there are coyote, there are bear, and quite possibly there are mountain lion. So, we need to stick together as a group while doing this horseback riding. But we have done this. Just stay with us, listen to us, and you will be safe. So they got this roar. They're already warned that there are, all these kind of predators out there. The guide with the rifle is the oldest out of the two. The younger one, who's in his 30s, the oldest one was in his 50s. He thought he seemed older. Had the long rifle. The younger one had a pistol, a lever action. He said, "This is how much of a city guy this is." He kept saying it was like a cowboy rifle, and I had to was it this? Did it look like this? And then I figured it out. What happens next? I can only think it would be a 4570 Government. So, being that all of these 11 are all not even novice riders, or amateur riders, excuse me. They are pre-amateur. None of them had been on a horse prior to this. One of the guides says, if this is a bear, we can't ride out of here. And, as quick as we could, the two guides, we're going to have to keep these guys safe. That's our job. That's what we get paid to do. We get paid to take these people out into the wilderness, but now we've got their lives in our hands. So they come up with a plan they're going to put their horses in front of the 11. The two guides have their horses, and then they're kind of behind them, but not really. Waiting for whatever this is to come out of the woods somewhere in front of them. Where they're watered their horses, there's water right here, So in this area here, there wasn't a real big area where this thing could come out of. It was pretty much going to come out head on or kind of to the side a little bit. What comes out of the woods none of them had any kind of clue. I'll tell you what happened, and then I'll give you the description. They hear the roar. They get situated. They could hear this thing through the woods. The horses are acting crazy. They're acting funny. Everyone is just kind of in a panic. The horses are in a panic. The horses they didn't have anything except like the saddles, the reins. This is all done within a matter of like minutes. But they kind of hobbled the horses together so they couldn't run. And to keep the 11 behind them and safe. They hear the noise. The horses are acting up. The people are told what to do. Stay calm, hold the horse here, the rein, and just stand there. We've got everything. You'll be safe. If by chance one of the horses takes off and runs, don't hold on to it. Let it go. It'll drag you. It sounds like just something's plowing through the woods towards them, and out it comes. It's a large bipedal furry monster. Once again, I'll give you the description in a few minutes. Everyone is kind of gasped. The two guides are like pulled back, like, whoa, what is going on? Some of the 11 are screaming, as you think you're having the time of your life, your first horse experience, and then this happens. So it stops like 20 to 30 feet in front of them. It's not very far. And the one older guide he shot it. He didn't bother. He kind of made like, what the, and shot. After the first shot, it stepped and kind of fumbled a little, and then he shot it again. And he was shooting in the chest, neck region. The other guide did not discharge his firearm at all. After 3 shots, this thing went down. That's why I'm thinking it's a 45-70 Gov'T, because any other kind of round that would be in a lever action would not do the damage to stop this thing. These are bear stoppers, and if anyone knows rounds, 45-70s, there are companies that make some really great stoppers in that caliber. It's dead. The 2 guides go over and look. They're kind of, not kicking it, but moving it. The horses are still, in a panic. Everyone behind the horses are like, trying to see, are we okay? What's going on? What is happening? Is there more? One of them said, are there more? Should we leave? The oldest guide says, we need to sit here let me figure what's going on. I don't think there are any more. Dumb assumption, because usually the word of advice is, where there's one, there may be more. But there wasn't. What this thing looked like, when it came out of the woods, it was at least 7.5 feet. It was bigger than the horses, height wise. It was a brindleish black color. It was all black, but it had kind of odd tan colors through it. Very noticeable. So it wasn't like a dark brown. It was like, he described it as like a brindled pit bull, but with more black. So like when, he described it as like, you see a brown pit bull with spot of, lines of black through it. And I'm doing this because that's how it is. There's just lines going through. This is all black with lines of brown. So it had no tail, and it had long hands, long fingers. That's the first thing he noticed, was its fingers, not the claws that were attached to the fingers. They were long as well, but the fingers were abnormally long. He said with the claws, this thing's hands were like 10 inches, like just 10-inch long, So I was like, well, how long were the claws? He said at least 2.5, 3 inches. So that would mean these fingers were 7 inches long. And I'm like, that's weird, It had very long arms. Once again, no tail. Very strange looking feet. He said they were human-like, but they were definitely not human. There was something reminiscent of a human foot, but very strange. It was very large in stature. He said, I see why people say it looked like a bodybuilder, but it did and it didn't. There was no definition. It was just big. He said there was no pectorals. There was no ripped in the abs. It was just big. And it smelled like it had pooped on itself. That was one of the key things when it first busted out into the woods at them. They got this kind of whiff of this just filthy fecal smell. And then that's when they shot it. They were talking about this after, what the hell was that? Did you see it? What was that smell? The thing is dead, and now they're like, what are we going to do? Do we leave it here? Do we bring it back? What do we do? The oldest guide pulls out a sat phone, and he calls a person he knows who works for the federal park, and makes a call and says, we're in the Bull Lake region, such and such trail. I just killed an unknown creature. Not a bear. I don't know. This is the description. And, these are, who he's speaking to is a federal park, fish and game or whatever, federal park ranger. Not fish and game, federal park ranger. not a friend of the guy, but an associate. He knows because that they have to know certain people because they're licensed as like equine trips and riders and stuff. They're told to sit tight. Someone will be there in a little bit of time, and they will take care of it, and you guys can go along with your day. Do you have people, they asked, this is all what this guy's hearing. So he's assuming, there are 11 guests. We are at the end of our ride. We were turning back when this occurred. Yada, yada, yada. All right. So they're all taking pictures with their phones. And apparently the forest ranger said, to the guide, don't let anyone take any pictures. Don't let anyone go near the thing until we know what it is. Which is strange, because you'd think that if these creatures didn't exist, why would that federal park ranger say that, right? So he says, hey, he gets off the sat phone, says, hey, I was told we got to wait here. Let's not take any more pictures. Put your phones away. Someone will be here. And then we can head out back to, base. About an hour and 20 minutes go by, and these folks are now, it's getting later in the day, because they didn't head out. This is a 4-hour, 2 hours out, 2 hours back. They didn't start this trek until 1 o'clock. So when this occurred, it's like 3:30. Now we're talking close to, 5 o'clock by the time someone comes out. There's some noise coming. The horses start acting up. And 2 men in park ranger gear come out on 4-wheelers, and they start talking to everybody. They get everyone's name. Were you hurt? Were you hurt in any way? No. Did you touch this? No. Okay. Name, address, everything. Very almost like a traffic infraction. Give me your name, give me your address, what's your this, what's that, what's your social. And no one thought any of the wiser of it, because they had just witnessed this thing get killed in front of them, and they're like, all right, well, maybe this is protocol. The men bag this thing up and ask the other 2 guides, hey, help us put this on this rack here, so we can get back, follow us, and we need to get some more information from you. Okay. So they ride out of the trails. They're, this is a 2-hour trip back. About an hour and a half in, they veer off the normal trailway, and they're brought to a road, a parking area with an accessible road. Not a well-traveled road, but an accessible road. There's 2 vans, a SUV with a trailer for the four-wheelers, and another SUV. They kind of, okay, we got some more information. Let's get off the horses. Let's take your info, and then you guys can get on your way. This whole time, these people are like, we're going back. There was no inkling that anything was going on. It was all, we're going back after they get our information. Everything that these park rangers were saying sounded so legit that there was no questioning. It just sounded like this is the right thing to do. This is what we need to do. They all get off their horses and they start, kind of talking. The 2 guides are told to, hey, let's get your horses secured over here, and we'll figure out a way of, everything going on. Moments later, the 2 park rangers are getting everything very nonchalantly taken care of. The horses are all taken care of. Everyone is off their horses, and everyone's standing in a location away from the horses. The 2 vans' doors open up, and out of each van there are 3 men with long rifles, by presuming automatic long rifles, all aimed at these 13 people, the 11 and the 2 guides. The 2 park rangers now back up, and another gentleman comes out of the SUV, and he starts barking orders at everybody. He had a very thick Southern accent. I had this guy, while he and I were talking, I said, dude, let me play you something. I said, does it sound like this? And I played it like I played the, one of the Victor interviews. And he said, no, it was deeper. It was a deep, just a really deep, mean sound to his voice. They were all held at gunpoint, and they were all told to just shut up. Don't give us your IDs, give us your phones, give us everything you have, your wallets, your phones, everything. They're all at gunpoint. As this is going on, 2 federal park ranger trucks show up with horse trailers. People get out and they load the horses onto the trailers. Everyone now is like, what the hell is going on? What's going on? What are you doing? What? The Southern gentleman now, the Southern guy, I'm not even going to call him a gentleman. The Southern guy is pretty much saying, hey, everything's going to be all right. This is protocol. This is what needs to happen. Everyone be quiet and follow orders, and you guys will be out of here. Apparently, during all this, a girl that the subscriber's cousin doesn't know, he's like, the girl's like a girlfriend of a friend of a friend. When I said they all didn't know each other, like, it'd be like, I'm just going to make up fictional names. Jim and Ted are best friends. Ted's got a friend that's named Bob, right? That Jim really doesn't know too well, but he knows of Bob. Bob's got a girlfriend named Amanda. Jim never met Amanda. That's kind of how it is, one of the girls starts like being these people aren't even country. These people are all, I guess, I don't even know how to say it. Would be the, not city slickers, but they're, upper middle class, or not upper middle class, upper middle class and upper class. They're not even middle class. They all have really good jobs. The women that don't have good jobs, their boyfriends or husbands have good jobs. So when I say, it's kind of hard to explain. He said, we're not rich, and, some of us are, some of us aren't, but a lot of us, live in Billings or live in Helena, where we have very good jobs, but the outdoors wasn't our thing. We just grew up in Montana, one of the women just start like acting like really questioning everything. I'm not even going to say acting like a Karen in this, because really at this point you're getting your liberties violated. You're like, what the hell? The woman starts piping up, and as she does, one of the guys with the guns is behind these people, and the southern guy is in front of her, and he just says, you might want to shut up, missy. And she's kicked in the back of their legs, brought to her knees, cuffed, and put in the van. People are like, what the hell is going on? They're the 11, now 12, even the guides, because I was like, well, what are the guides doing? And they're like us, what are you guys doing? They're now like gunpoint. They're, ready to fire. You move, you're dead. They're all zip tied up. She was cuffed. A guy goes to the van, brings her to the van, puts her in. The other guys zip tied up, put in vans. There's 13 people, 6 and 7 in each van, and they drive off. The horses are loaded up on that trailer. We'll get into all that after. They are taken 5 hours from Libby, Montana, which is where the Kootenai or Kootenai National Forest is, all the way to Great Falls, where Malmstrom Air Force Base is. During that trip, they detour. These vans are tinted. So, blacked out windows, they can see out. People can't see in. They pick a gentleman up that is from the Blackfeet Indian Reservation, who is not native. Very quiet, but is now in the van and sitting. Didn't say a word to, he actually spoke to the southern guy. Didn't get in the SUV he was in, but got in one of the vans and was in the front, which I thought that was weird. I was like, well, why would you detour, and how big of a detour it is? And he said about an hour. This was like, it's only a 5-hour drive, but we drove for nearly 6 hours. By the time we got to Malmstrom, it was almost 1 a.m. Mind you, when they were in the mix of everything, and this creature was shot. By the time anyone got there, it was almost 5. They get to the base, and they are all held against their wishes. They're all questioned. They're not told not to say anything. Because one of the guys says, you know, I'm going to say something, you know. And the Southern guy goes, go ahead. Go ahead. Who's going to believe you? Go ahead. He literally just go on Reddit. See how far you get. See how many people believe you. Where's your proof? We have pictures. No, you don't. You don't have anything. You have a story. You have a story that your friends have. But other than that, prove this. Prove this happened. Prove you were here. Prove we did this. Prove we did that. The 2 guides are kept separate from the 11. They're then kept on this base in a kind of quarantined area away from everything for 3.5 days. For the first 24 hours, they are not fed. They are questioned, but not really questioned. You know, where do you live? Who's this? Who's that? Is this? Pretty much a list is made out of all of them. And then at around the second day, they're finally, you know, fed. Not full day, but, you know, I was like, were you in like a jail? And he said, no, it was this large room. But we were all kept separate. We were all, you know, one person was here, one person was, you know, 20 feet away, another person. And I'm like, that's a big room. And he said, yeah, he said it was reminiscent of a airplane hangar, but it was not a hangar. You know, there was like a 8-foot ceiling, these really bright fluorescent lights that were never turned off. They were forced to sleep sitting up, pretty much tortured. Never once told to keep your mouth shut. And like if one spoke, like I said, almost do it. See how far and what happens. And they're finally eating, and the guy who they picked up at the res comes in. The day they are piled back into the van and brought back to Libby to their cabins. Now, the gentleman that they had picked up on the reservation is now in the room that the 11 are in. The Southern guy has not been seen for 10 hours. Mind you, everyone's night and day schedule is messed up because the 11 have been in this room with distance between them and armed men in this room with these bright fluorescent lights that are not turned off. It's almost like torture. The lights are not turned off. They have to sleep with the lights on. They are escorted to use the facilities one at a time if they need to go. So this guy is in the room and addresses all of them, sit here. We're bringing you back to your camp. It's in your best interest not to say anything. I'm not telling you not to say anything, but it's in your best interest. If you do, you do. If you don't, you don't. We will deny everything, and we will, pretty much, we're not going to harm you physically, but we will make you look like you are crazy. They're then escorted through this long kind of hallway. The two guides are not with them as of yet. As they're walking out, he's trying to figure out, some kind of something key to identify if anything ever happens, and he has to, say, hey, we were here. He was just looking for like a sign, something in the wall, something on the wall, like, just, we were in this hallway and this hallway had this. But even if he did, no one's going to go there, and they don't have to let any outside, non-government people on the base. So it really doesn't matter, They're escorted out. They're loaded into a van. They are once again zip tied. They're free to go now as they're heading to the van, but they're zip tied. He's put in one van with 6 of his 5 are now in another van. The 2 guides are brought out minutes later. They're in the van like, why are we waiting? What's going on? They hadn't seen the guides in 3.5 days almost. They kind of forgot about them, because you see your friends or people or people you've been acquainted with during this, but you're not thinking about the other 2 guides that you have not seen because you don't know them. It's kind of like if you thought about it, you'd remember, but it's not. So they're like, why aren't we leaving? Are they going to kill us on this van? Like, are they just going to, The 2 guides are escorted onto the other van with the other 5, not the person who contacted me. In the van, there's a barrier between the driver and passenger side, so they can't kick or do anything, obviously. They're put in, and on their 5-hour ride back, one of the younger guide talks to the older guide, and the subscriber's cousin's friend is on there, and like best friend, and he overhears the conversation and then tells the person who contacted me this later. Apparently the younger of the 2 guides had said, what the hell? did you see what I saw on our way out? And the older guide, kind of just sat there, and he said, there was 4 of those blanking things in a caged room, like in a room that had like a jail cage, like not like a pod, but like an old-fashioned jail with bars. In this kind of large room that when these 2 guides walked by, they had seen it because they were in a totally different part of the containment area than the 11 were. Buddy hears this and says, wait, what? What did you say? Like, what did you say? There were those creatures in the building that we were in? Like, why were there 3 or 4 of these things? Why are they there? The older guide says, shut up. Just shut up. No one knows what these 2 guides went through compared to these 11. I'm assuming the same kind of isolation, the same kind of questioning, the same kind of torture with the lights. The 11 are brought to their cabins, brought out, clipped. Their zip ties are clipped off. They're handed their phones. They're handed their IDs, their wallets, their this, their that. Not a word is said, and the 2 vans pull out and leave. They look out as these vans are leaving because, they're under the impression that the guides are going to get dropped off too. But they're still in the van driving away. As the vans go down this kind of drive, they look and there's the vans pull out, and following the 2 vans is a white SUV. At that point, all of them look at each other. They check their phones. There's nothing. Their phones have been wiped clean. Contacts are gone. Phone numbers are gone. Pictures of, family members. Anything that was in that phone is now gone. They, of course, check, their wallets and whatever, and everything's in there. But, their phones were wiped clean. Like, still had a cell service, but everything else was gone. They all pack up. None of them are talking about it. None of them are saying a word about what happened. They all pack up, get into their cars, their vehicles, their, individual vehicles. These are their cars. They're at their cabin that they rented, and head out. And none of them said a word to each other. He heads back to where his home is, which is in a city in Montana, and had been sitting on this experience, for 2-3 weeks. Lets his cousin know what happened, and they tell them, hey, get a hold of, this person, that person, and this person. Share what happened so people know. It's crazy. And I did a little looking into like Maelstrom Air Force Base, and it has a bad rap around the area. And you could just hear the confusion in his voice. And he asked me, he's like, why do you think there were 4 of those creatures in this kind of jail celled room? He said, I didn't see it, but that's the best way I can explain it. And I said, yeah, I don't know. I didn't want to be like, the government's using them, obviously, dummy. But they head out, and he's talked to his best friend, who was the one that heard that, and they've compared notes to what went on, and this and that. And he's like, should we reach out to the ranch and see if these guys are okay? And they kind of agreed, no, let's just end it while we're ahead and alive, and head back home. And they head back home, and everything that transpired is now in his brain, and he can't explain or understand what happened. And I said, listen, there's a few people that I've done interviews with that, check them out. I gave him a link to Victor, to the playlist that I have. Steph, the ambulance driver, a couple of other experiences. I said, these are people talking that have had a very similar experience with these creatures that you had. Maybe this can help you. I said, how do you feel about what transpired? Do you want to learn more about these creatures? And his straight up words were, I don't care what they were. I don't ever want to see them again. I don't want to talk about them. Thank you for, allowing me to share this with you. But, I can't watch or hear any more experiences because of what happened to us. And I said, understandable, understandable. Thank God you're alive. Thank God you're not like on level 16 of the White House and hidden. So anyway, it's just unbelievable. It's freaking crazy. That's the second time. Let's take Victor out of the equation. But that's the second time I've heard of third time that I've heard of a Southern gentleman being in charge. The Pennsylvania, Delaware, this guy. So third time would be the Delaware, Pennsylvania, where the gentleman shot the Dogman with his dog while camping Pete. And then the sheriff that was in Colorado when he was used as bait for Dogmen. The key thing is this wasn't a Dogman. No tail, weirdly large hands, and not a very large snout. That's a werewolf. And it's just insane to hear this because, the second he said Southern guy, I instantly went, I peeked right up, I was like, wait a second, what? And then I thought about the Delaware, and then I thought about the Colorado sheriff. And I was like, this is unbelievable. This is crazy. He really thinks he's lucky to be alive. I I said, well, after the first night, you should have known you were okay, you were in the clear, but they wanted to just mess with you. But yeah, they are they are watching, and they are ever knowing, especially if it's a werewolf. Our government is using these creatures. Just a really strange set of events that should have never happened, like I said in the beginning. They first should have never seen one of these creatures, and second, they should have never been detained. So, I don't know. Anyway, guys, with that, be safe. Really be safe. These creatures are dangerous, but so isn't our government. So, with that, be safe, happy, healthy, ever vigilant. Please keep an eye on your pets and children and loved ones while you are camping, fishing, boating, hiking, whatever. These things are out there, and they are really watching us. Just because we don't see them doesn't mean they're not watching us. So, with that, God bless you all.